Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate. Are you prepared? We're the Are you prepared? We're the Office of Emergency Services, and we're committed to providing the most up-to-date and accurate information so that you and your family can stay safe during an emergency. Part of being prepared is knowing your hazards and taking proper precautions. Visit mendoready.org. On the Know Your Hazards page, you can find hazards for where you work, where you live, and where your kids go to school. On the Plan and Prepare page, you'll find a plan template. It's important to know what you're going to do, what you're going to take with you, how you're going to communicate, where you're going to go, and how to get there.
One great way to prepare is to pack a go bag. Each member of your family should have their own go bag. Visit our website, mendoready.org, to get a list of items that should be in your go bag.
Gathering and organizing important documents before an emergency is an important part of preparedness. So visit mendoready.org today, where you can find a list of important documents that you should have ready near your go bag in case you have to evacuate.
PM.
Not every.
I'd like to invite the clerk to conduct roll call.
Member Gasca.
Here.
Director Neverez is absent. Member Bailey.
Here.
Vice Chair Crane.
I guess it's here.
Chair Klein.
Here. All right, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, and can we have a roll call vote, please?
Member Gasca.
Aye.
Member Bailey.
Aye.
Vice Chair Crane.
Aye.
Chair Klein.
Aye. All right, we will now move on to audience comments on non-agenda items. The Groundwater Sustainability Agency Board welcomes input. If there are matters of business on the agenda that you are interested in, you may address the board when that matter is considered. If you wish to speak on a matter that is not on the agenda, you may do so at this time. I'm seeing no public comment in the audience. Clerk, do we have any public comment online?
I'm not seeing any hands raised.
All right, seeing none, we will move on to item 4, discussion and possible action items, starting with 4A, consideration of the fiscal year 2025 or 2026-2027 operating budget of the Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency, and we'll go to our general manager.
Good afternoon, Chair and Board. Thank you for hearing this item this afternoon. This item is the proposed fiscal year 26-27 operating budget for the agency. It was developed in conjunction with the ad hoc that was appointed by this board, with directors Gasca and Bailey participating, and also with a great amount of support from Elizabeth Patton from our Water Resources Department and Ryan Cricken who is the wastewater treatment plant supervisor and has been working with us on the grant, which is tied closely to this budget. So the agency's budget is designed to ensure continued compliance with SGMA while maintaining local control of groundwater management for our Ukiah Valley Basin. The most notable adjustments to the budget for this upcoming year is an adjustment of 3.21% to the sustainability fee to keep up with inflation. There is continued CDFW grant funding that you will see that plays a key role in this budget. The expenditures are mostly the grant-funded work, some project carryovers, and there is an increase in our legal fees. So those are kind of the largest expenditure items. The major projects included in the budget is the periodic evaluation, which is due in January of 27. There's model updates included, the well inventory study, and the ISW/GDE study. The estimated revenues are $663,900 from fees and about $450,000 in grant reimbursement. We're seeing those grant reimbursements come in pretty efficiently right now, so that's really good news. And then we're projecting a cash balance or reserve of $700,000, give or take, and that will go towards PMAs in the future and any repairs to equipment if needed. So that's a very high-level overview of the presented budget. It's very much business as usual, and staff is here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. I'd like to go to the ad hoc for their comments on this item. Go ahead, Director Gasca.
I want to start by giving a thank you to Maya. Things are a lot clearer than they were prior, and yeah, I gave my input through it. I'm hoping that I like that we do have a pretty sizable cash carry forward, and we are building those reserves. And just, not at this time, but I would hope that eventually we can look at, or at least determine if there is a possibility of dialing back the fees if there's no big projects that we have to do once we do have that reserve that we have the goal for.
Director Bailey?
Yeah, no, I appreciate how clearly both going into the ad hoc meeting the budget was, and you had really good grasp on what the different expenses were. You can see reflected in there that there were some expenses that we had put in the 25-26 budget that were not expended, and we'll get to it later, but we're catching up. So thanks for the work on that. And then just a comment, and I'm sure this is on your radar, in a later agenda item, we'll be talking about some changes that will need to reflect on the budget. But other than that, I really like how the format is laid out to kind of monitor things by the project management action and the kind of scope of work of contractors.
Thank you. Look to Director Crane for his comments. Right. My one question for the ad hoc is, seeing that we are ending with a sizable amount projected as our carry forward, $700,000 to go into reserve, are we 100% sure that the adjustment of 3.21%, that increase to the fees, is that 100% necessary?
I would defer to, to staff. If we do, we probably will have enough reserves that we could take it back. I know that it was built in to have an escalator for inflation. So, on the one hand, if we did dial it back some, I don't know if it would make a huge difference. I don't know that we would want to make it zero, just in part because it kind of sets a habit of doing that.
Yeah, and I think the opposite is true. If you set the habit of always having an increase, then it's, it's going to continue to have that increase. And so I want to put it out as, consideration.
Yeah, I guess the part for me is like, this escalator now is not keeping up with what inflation currently is. And so and it's anticipated because of kind of geopolitical things going on, that inflation is going to keep going up this year. And so if we dial it back, we have a limit of 4% of what we can raise it to. I think I forget if it's in our bylaws, or I was just reading last night, it was like 4% is the max we can go to.
Yeah.
And so if we go to like 2 this year, and then inflation comes in at 5 or 6%, we don't have easy ability to catch. My thinking is like, we're not going to the max, we're below inflation, and that it's worthwhile, since we're a fairly new agency, that we kind of set us up for a trajectory of success, and then maybe in the future we can lower them.
Yeah, I agree with those comments. My one hesitation is that we've been a pretty cash positive agency for the last couple of years. Like, we're in a good financial position, and so just want to be cognizant, again, just knowing also market conditions. A majority, of our funding is going to come from agriculture. People are struggling, and I know 3% on this fee is not make or break for people's businesses, and even the individual property owners, the residential property owners. It's not going to radically change, but just want us to be cautious and 100% sure that we are comfortable with doing this increase.
Yeah. No, I mean, it all adds up.
It does.
I could just point to the work that that Hansford, the consultant that does this fee analysis for us, has done, and she felt like it was a pretty conservative number to protect the agency continuing to have the reserves. But I do agree with the opportunity, hopefully with Prop 4 coming out, to get some additional funding coming in, that maybe we keep it with this analyzed structure for this year, because it's I don't think it's too aggressive when you look at the dollar amounts, although I respect any increase is affecting everyone, but that I do think there's an opportunity to scale back, especially if we get some Prop 4 funding. So just keeping that in mind as a very likely avenue coming forward.
I appreciate those comments. Thank you for saying that. I think the trajectory of this agency is not to continue to scale up, right? It's just to keep things lean, effective, meeting our mandates, checking the box, right? So not growing this to be some massive agency by any means. So we'll just keep that in mind as Prop 4 is coming forward. I think I'm comfortable with where this lands today, but wanted just to bring that as a point of conversation. So are there any other comments from the board before we open up for public comment? All right, seeing none, is there any public comment online?
Not seeing any hands raised.
All right, thank you. We'll go back for board comments, or I'd entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the budget.
Second.
All right, thank you. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Gaska?
Aye.
Director Bailey?
Aye.
Vice Chair Crane?
Aye.
Chair Klein?
Aye. All right, moving to item 4B, review and discuss updating the Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency's governing documents per the Stantec technical memo relating to the governing document amendments and per recommendations from the Technical Advisory Committee, and make any associated recommendations to staff. Again, we'll go to our general manager.
Great, thank you. This next item does discuss potential updates to the governing documents. Stantec is working with the Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency through a contract that they have secured with the Department of Water Resources. They submitted a technical memo in the beginning of this calendar year outlining inconsistencies, areas where they thought we as an agency might be able to make improvements, and proposed some options for moving forward, which staff has looked at and also shared with the Technical Advisory Committee at the meeting that we had with them in May. So I think it can really be boiled down to, we could tear apart all of these documents. There's the bylaws, the JPAs, and the MOU, and start over and completely go through them line by line, or we could do an effective, targeted amendment to each document that is dealing with the areas that are in the most need of attention, and then see how that goes, and if there's other areas that need to be addressed later. We took that concept to the TAC, and I think got really good support from the TAC in doing targeted amendments, not trying to sort of rebuild all of those agreements or documents from the ground up. We looked at easy things like obviously needing to replace the Upper Russian River Watershed Authority with the Ukiah Valley Water Authority, so we need to get our governing parties updated. There's discrepancies in titles for the general manager / executive director position and roles, so really low-hanging fruit per se that could be cleaned up. And then the TAC brought forward some really good points, including the potential realignment of the membership seats for the TAC to align with the board seats, and that would actually reduce the number of seated TAC members and could potentially make it a lot easier to secure a quorum for those meetings moving forward. The TAC also recommended not moving forward with trying to draft a separate charter for the TAC, which was one of the proposed suggestions from Stantec. They recommended the possible transfer of the financial administration from the County of Mendocino to the City of Ukiah, which would alleviate some of the sort of financial jeopardy that we're in right now with one agency doing part of the finances and the other agency doing the other part and the auditing of the finances. So staff met with Amber Fissette from the county and from the TAC separately and went over all the documents with her one-on-one, and we together incorporated the red line changes that you saw in your packet that are specific to the financial administration of the GSA. I also spoke with the City of Ukiah's finance director and gained assurance from him that the city was in a position to take on that work just as they have done for other outside agencies, and the money is kept in a completely separate fund than the City of Ukiah's funds. So I have confidence that that transition could be implemented should the board choose to move that direction. And then the last notable suggestion or recommendation from the TAC was the opportunity to provide a stipend, an optional stipend to the board for participating in the board. This might come into play for directors that don't get compensated from their employers for being there, such as the tribal members. So it's an idea or a concept that could encourage additional participation in the board. So those are kind of the highlighted summaries of the targeted amendments to the 3 documents. They're really, some of them are quite lengthy. I did my best to redline and point out the changes in the attachments, but staff really basically at this point needs direction from the board on how to move forward. And the options that I see are we could collect your feedback today and we could incorporate those into another red line version that could then go to legal review, because although Stantec did a review and I have done a review, it has not actually gone to our attorneys yet. And then we could bring the final red line documents back to the board at their next board meeting for discussion and potential adoption. So I'm not asking for any final decisions today, but I do need to solicit direction moving forward. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to board comments. Director Bailey.
Yeah, I appreciate the approach of not going in and like thoroughly redoing all of the documents, because we don't really need it and it would just add unnecessary expense. in terms of the financial management, switching over to the city of Ukiah, I think that makes sense. And I think, kind of you covered this, but really making sure that it's clearly, separately tracked and documented financial and managerial processes, because, especially with like the change in the membership to be the Ukiah Valley Water Authority and concerns in the community about the annexation by the city of additional lands, keeping this agency as separate as possible from the city while relying on the city to run it is important. And I know we've talked about this before in terms of maintaining our website as like a fully separate functional place where all of the documents are, so not everything refers back to the city, and then keeping those internal documents, which I think are, in some of these redlined things of like, for example, the invoicing and how the tracking of that goes in has been clarified. So I think, I have continuing concerns about how we keep this separate from the city, and moving the finances to the city kind of makes that line move a little bit further over, but at the same time, I think it'll make us more efficient.
I'll add to that comment. I appreciate that, Director Bailey. It's been very complicated having things straddled in two different places, and I understand that, there's an efficiency problem there. I definitely have concerns about just general internal controls. Not that there's any negative intentions by anybody, but want to make sure, and I think that's called out in some of the information from Stantec, but just making sure that the internal controls are really strong. It's just to safeguard the agency. So I think that can be done. I'm comfortable moving to the city of Ukiah because I think it's overall just better for management to have things in one place, but want to ensure that there are strong internal controls. Director Crane.
In one place, it also makes the audits.
And I think that our general manager will make sure that there is a external audit happening. Director Gasca?
And I mean, it still just behooves the members of the board and whoever's on, the budget or finance committee to, really keep an eye, which that is what our job is.
Absolutely. I have just a quick comment on board stipends. I have a different position, obviously, because I'm here in a paid role as a paid representative. But just in my experience, I have not seen any increased participation based on having a stipend. I don't think that that's a true incentive for folks to participate, but I would welcome others' perspectives on that.
Yeah, it was a suggestion brought by Chris Watt. And I mean, I agree. I don't know that no one's doing it for the money, or I don't know that it's going to really draw anybody. But on the other hand, we do want more participation. So I didn't think it hurt to offer it.
Yeah, I'm not opposed. I mean, I almost feel like if we had language in there that was, you can get the stipend if you're not compensated for coming to these. Like, I get a stipend through the Russian River Flood Control and Water Conservation District, so I wouldn't take that. But I think in terms of tribal engagement, and then also there was a question of whether we would want to add a domestic well user to this, and so those might be two different positions. Am I crossing line?
Yes. It makes it very restrictive. People are paying just by having irrigated farmland, whether they have a well or are using it or not. And so, we struggle to find people to serve, just in general, and making it like harder to qualify to serve isn't a good idea. And especially since people basically have to pay, it feels like they should have the opportunity to be able to serve on this board or on the TAC.
I agree.
Yeah.
Fully agree.
Yeah, it used to be that you had to be either an owner or an employee of an operation within the basin that farmed at least 15 acres and used groundwater in order to be able to serve on the board or the TAC.
So the red line does incorporate those changes,
Yeah,
Director Bailey? I just want to make sure that's okay.
Yeah, I thought when I was going through that we were talking about adding a domestic well user.
Oh,
As
we
a
did
seat.
have a
We did
conversation
have
about that
conversation.
and with the TAC, and it was, the dialogue I remember from that was it would be very hard to appoint that or to recruit that seat.
Yeah.
So I apologize, that is not included.
Okay, I'll scroll through again, but I thought I just saw it when I was checking again here. But anyway, to circle back to the stipends, I mean, I feel like, especially for the tribal representatives, there's, a history and a practice of asking tribes for input without compensating them, and so I would be in favor of the stipend and would suggest that, it'd be that if you're already compensated by your employer or by another board that you serve on, that you not be eligible for that stipend, so that you're not kind of double dipping, but having the stipend makes sense to me. And, just for the public, I mean, it was probably 5 to 6 hours of preparation for this meeting, a couple hours in this meeting, so you're talking $15 an hour stipend at $100. Not a lot per hour.
Director Crane.
So what if it's an actual owner rather than an employee that's not?
And for who? For Director Bailey?
Thought or?
I mean, I guess I would say if they're not, my immediate thought is that if they're not being compensated by some other entity to serve here, that they would be eligible. So if they were an owner who was not being compensated by LLC or whatever that owns their land, that they would be eligible. But it does then get into tracking. So if we just said optional stipend, I mean, we don't want to take on more tracking of like, can you prove to us you're not getting paid?
But yeah, although if somebody's an employee and they're doing it because they're an employee, they're being compensated.
Well, and I think that there is a potential that there is an employee of, like a tribal representative who is an employee who is on our board. And so that does include complications. I would suggest we, since the goal is for recruitment, particularly for the seat that is historically open, that we have that conversation at the tribal outreach meeting that's scheduled for this month, just to seek some engagement before we go down the path of doing this.
Support that.
I'll make a note on that for that meeting.
Thank you.
So should we circle back to the matching the TAC seats, which would address Director Bailey's question about the well user seat to the existing board seats? Or do you want to leave? So there is an inconsistency right now with the governing documents not including the California Land Stewardship Institute seat. So we do have to make changes to the makeup of the TAC, and that either needs to make it consistent to the current seated TAC members, or we could alter it to match one-on-one to the board seats.
Director Gasca, can you share the perspective from, the conversation with the TAC? Was there interest in alignment with the board?
Yeah, there was, just to make it easier to meet a quorum. And I mean, we don't want to exclude anybody that wants to be involved, but, that it's already basically just an advisory board anyway, that ultimately, the power is vested in this board. And so they're not going to be really denied any opportunity to participate. And because we have had issues getting quorums when with having as many people as we have on the TAC. And the handful, like I think in Laurel's here, and if she wants to speak to it, she can. I mean, they were comfortable with relinquishing their official seat, yeah.
That's good feedback. Any other comments on that topic?
I'm fine with aligning the membership.
I am as well. If the TAC's comfortable with it, then I'm comfortable with it. Maybe this is an opportunity for us to go to public comment if there's any online.
I'm not seeing any hands raised online.
Okay. All right, we'll go back to our general manager. Any other items that you'd like clarification or direction on?
I think I really appreciate your input. I will move forward if you so choose with doing a final red line document and then moving forward with a legal review of the documents in red line, and then we could bring an updated version back at the next board meeting for potential adoption.
I had a couple
Nope, go ahead.
things that need to be cleaned up on the joint powers agreement forming. So initially, IRWA was a JPA that did include the Russian River Flood Control District, and then they left.
On the JPA?
On here it states, and it continues to refer to them as being part of the Ukiah Valley. This is where,
Okay.
We're giving the Ukiah Valley Water Authority the IRWA seat. But then in the papers, it describes a relationship that did exist between IRWA and the Russian River Flood Control District that no longer exists, but it continues in the language to the Water Authority on
Okay.
page 6 of 18.
Okay. I will
Well, and on the top on the,
I see that. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll capture that.
Dr. Bailey?
This is on the Ukiah Valley Basin bylaws. It's 6.3.2.1. Independent audit. The annual independent audit will be conducted or coordinated by the City of Ukiah Finance Director. To me, that kind of is like the, in some ways, the fox guarding the hen house. I mean, it just goes back to like the side of keeping things separate. And if we have the city now managing all of the finances for the GSA, and then the city conducting its own audit of how it's conducting the GSA finances, I wonder how much it would cost us to have a third-party audit. And maybe that could be the County of Mendocino, or it could be a professional qualified auditor.
It is a third party. He coordinates it, but we have outside third party. They're actually in right now doing audits twice a year. So it's a contract, I think, under the director, but we could clarify that language in here.
Yeah, because right now it says the annual independent audit will be conducted or coordinated by the City of Ukiah Finance Director. So if it was...
So he does coordinate it, but he doesn't do the work. I guess he facilitates would be a better word.
Yeah, I think we could just take out the conduct.
Yes.
Leave just coordinated. To
Okay.
Director Bailey's concerns.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on this item?
And that's not intended to throw any shade
No,
on the
it's-
City of Ukiah Finance Director.
It's really good points. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We're just shoring the agency up.
Agree 100%.
All right, I think that's going to conclude item 4B. We'll now move to 4C. Receive update on the Groundwater Sustainability Plan 2027 periodic evaluation. And we'll go to Larry Walker and Associates.
All right, good afternoon, Chair Klein, members of the board. Here to give you just a brief update on the status and our planned schedule for the remainder of 2026 for items and tasks related to the periodic evaluation. So I will go ahead and share my screen and we can get started. All right, so members of this board had heard previously from Larry Walker Associates and recommendations from the TAC that there was an interest in pursuing only a periodic evaluation and not also a more comprehensive plan amendment, but instead choosing to pursue that later down the road once more data had been collected, more information could be updated in the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. So taking a look, and just want to give a refresher here about what is included in the GSP periodic evaluation and what this is. So again, this is going to be more comprehensive than what the GSA already does for annual reports. Those do provide a status update each year on groundwater, surface water use in the basin, comparison of measurements against sustainable management criteria for representative monitoring points. This is just a more comprehensive view that covers additional topics beyond the annual report. So certainly information that we collect to complete the annual report will be very important, but this is going to be even more. And again, we're looking at basin conditions, as we'll see when I go through some of the key topics, new data that have been collected, new information that's become available from public agencies and the like. And so this is also going to be an opportunity for the GSA to address and describe progress on the several corrective actions that DWR identified in their recommendation letter to accept the Ukiah Valley Basin's GSP. And again, this is in no way intended to make any major changes to the GSP, because that would really be taking the GSA down the road to plan amendment. So SGMA, again, this is a standard kind of regulatory requirement by SGMA. Each basin that is medium or high priority must submit a GSP periodic evaluation 5 years after initial plan submission. So for the Ukiah Valley Basin, this is coming up reasonably quickly, and that'll be towards the end of January 2027. But as you'll see, we want to make sure that we build in sufficient time to receive feedback from GSA staff, from TAC, and from board, and have revisions prior to submission. All right, so let me keep going here. All right, and just as a reminder, DWR did include with its determination letter for the GSP, finding it sufficient when it was submitted by the GSA back in 2022. It did identify several areas that DWR would like to see progress. So again, these are related to specific corrective actions that were identified in the letter by DWR, and then also making progress on anticipated improvements that the GSA itself identified in the GSP, closing data gaps, making different improvements to the model, things like this. And so there is some overlap between those two categories. And TAC went ahead back in 2024, as we've discussed with the board previously, and identify kind of 3 key priority areas, and these will absolutely be featured, the progress that's been made here in the periodic evaluation. Again, a quick reminder, because we have shared this information before, but those recommended 3 high priority items were related to enhancing and expanding the monitoring network, performing an interconnected surface water study, which again has already initiated, and we'll update the board on that a little bit later this afternoon, funded by CDFW, and then also well inventory. So there has been substantial progress on all 3 of these tasks since they were identified as high priority items in 2024. So again, we'll be able to report out on the progress and the initiative that the GSA has taken on these, in addition to other corrective actions that were identified. All right, so again, some of the other additional key components that will be chapters within this periodic evaluation are identified in guidance that has been put forth by DWR. Are going to be things like understanding basin conditions relative to the sustainable management criteria, as mentioned earlier. It is something that we do periodically in the annual reports. Looking at sort of the monitoring network status, it has grown since the GSP was initially submitted several years ago. And looking at that basin setting evaluation, updating the project management actions and progress that has been made to those to those efforts and identified high priority items. Also the governance and management of the GSA itself, which again, it sounds like is an active area of development and growth with the assistance of Stantec. Then looking at outreach and coordination with other agencies that's occurred since submission of the GSP. And then finally looking at updated data and technical information, of which there's a good bit for the basin. So we're encouraged to see that. And then also some more minor plan updates. Again, major plan updates, changes need or sort of require a plan amendment, which the GSA has chosen not to pursue. And so these are things that like expansion of the representative monitoring point network, perhaps a conversation, as we've discussed with the board previously, about reevaluating one of the groundwater level representative monitoring points that is extremely close proximity to a public supply well, and also clarifications that were requested by DWR as part of the recommended corrective actions. So that gives you a bit of a sense of the breadth of different topics that will be incorporated. So let's talk about schedule, and then we can move on to other topics. So we do, as I mentioned, want to ensure that we have sufficient review time. So it's a rather compressed schedule from the beginning. And so in the coming months, we are going to be working hard. We're already preparing a draft in July at the joint TAC and board meeting that will take place on the 10th that Maya scheduled. The technical team will be providing a more comprehensive update on the periodic evaluation status, key issues or areas that will be addressed in the periodic evaluation that we want to flag for TAC and board members ahead of review of that draft that will come later in the year, and also ahead of a meeting that GSA staff have scheduled with DWR to have a conversation about implementation, and then also some of these key issues and questions that have come up during periodic evaluation preparation. Again, one of those key topics that has been brought to this board previously is that idea of the representative monitoring point in very, very close proximity to a public supply well and getting impacted by the cone of depression from that supply well. So those are coming up, again, just in the next month or so here. And that meeting with DWR, the plan is for GSA staff and a few key technical team members to be in attendance and have a conversation. And preview, of course, the topics that will be discussed with board and TAC ahead of the DWR meeting. Then, again, after a few more months drafting the periodic evaluation, we will have a manuscript prepared that can be reviewed by TAC ahead of the October meeting. The plan is to get that out to TAC members a couple of weeks in advance so that they do have some time to review. We know that that can take some time, absolutely, to walk through and consider the information that's being shared. And the hope is that during that October meeting, the technical team can receive feedback and begin revisions. A revised, improved draft will then be shared with the board of directors ahead of the meeting that is scheduled for November 12th, 2026, so about a month after. And then at that point, the technical team will incorporate feedback from the TAC that had not been addressed from the board, anything else received during these meetings, be working with GSA staff during revisions so that they can also be providing input and review. And then the plan is to have a final draft ready for submission to DWR ahead of that January 28th, 2027 deadline. So this is the plan. It gives you a bit of a preview for what the next, 6 months or so will look like in this process, and know that we are hard at work to prepare this and coordinating regularly with the GSA staff. So with that, I will pause if there are any questions. Otherwise, we'll have more to share with you in July.
All right, are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you, Audra, for that presentation. All right, and I think now we're going to move on to another LWA presentation. Item 4D, receive update on the Upper Russian River groundwater dependent ecosystem and interconnected surface water study.
Great, thank you, Chair Klein. And that's right, we do also have an update on activities that have taken place since the previous board meeting. And so we will share those with you now. Again, my name is Audra. I'm part of the technical team that supports the Groundwater Sustainability Agency, both in GSP implementation and this special study. So let's go ahead and take a look. So as a quick reminder for what we covered and sort of updated the board of directors on during the last meeting, which was in March. So we gave a sense for the approach that would take place to carry out the study, some of the major goals. We also shared some progress to date, the tributaries of interest that arose from conversations with TAC members, public webinar, meetings with tribal members from different tribes in the basin. And then we also presented a site prioritization framework that would help guide our outreach and site selection approach. And that had been approved by the TAC before we brought it to the board. So that was kind of where we were at that point. And our plan next steps included site reconnaissance, actually getting ourselves out in the field, looking around, and then prioritization using this multi-factor framework that we had previously shared. We then were planning to work very hard to reach out to potential participants for this study with public and private entities, and then also hopefully establish some access agreements and begin actually collecting data. So I'm happy to share that we have accomplished all of these in the intervening time, although we do hope to get a couple more participants if at all possible. So let's take a look. In terms of site reconnaissance, I and some of the other technical team did head out to the basin just right after the meeting that was held in March. I think March 13th is when we actually went out. We were able to get out a few different experts in herpetology, so frogs and turtles, for fish, for geomorphology, and we were able to look around and consider our existing network and kind of allow us to start ranking some of these sites. From that, we were I think maybe someone accidentally unmuted, excuse me. We are happy to share that there have been 3 signed access agreements along the main stem and West Fork properties that are owned either by Ukiah Valley Water Authority or City of Ukiah, and then 2 additional signed access agreements along tributaries that are privately owned as well. In terms of data collection, there has been an initial field visit that took place last week. And so that was an opportunity for the herpetology team, again, kind of frogs and turtles, to go and conduct their initial surveys. They also went out and collected some environmental tracer data to help us understand potential influence of groundwater to base flow at these sites. And then we also were able to review some existing well and monitoring network data that's relevant to the study. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about site prioritization and the locations that have been identified for monitoring throughout the course of the study. So as a reminder, for site prioritization and the framework that we applied in order to determine where we wanted to really target efforts in landowner outreach and obtaining access agreements so that we could carry out this study, tributaries of interest, again, that came out of conversations with TAC, with members of the public and other interested parties at the webinar in January, and other folks who provided input, we did come up with a list of several tributaries throughout the basin. There's also, of course, interest in West Fork and main stem portions of the Russian River. And you'll see that we ranked those as well. And so again, we had this multi-factor prioritization rubric that we applied to these different tributaries to get a sense for which might be the most preferred versus the least preferred if we had our choice and where to sort of direct our efforts and energy. So here's a quick look at what that rubric contains. Again, I believe we shared this in the staff report during the last meeting. The idea is just that this is cross-cutting, includes ecological factors, hydrological factors, we're thinking about connectivity to the basin, and then also, of course, very importantly, feasibility. Is it safe for our team members to access this location? And do we have study participants who are willing to allow us onto the property? All right, so sharing the results of some of this prioritization effort, there were 4 tributaries in the basin that ranked most highly and were really separate from the other remaining tributaries. And so the maximum possible score, if we go back and look, is going to be a 5. And so no site was perfect. There are sort of trade-offs for all of these, but we thought that they would all be good to target and would be valuable to include in the study. So you can see that Ackerman Creek came up most highly ranked, followed by Robinson, Forsyth, and Morrison Creeks. So you can see those highlighted here on this map. And then when we did the ranking also, and again, this is not going to be comprehensive for the entire length of the West Fork, of course, and the main stem, but areas where we were able to access with the team members and kind of take a look and consider other desktop data. Those were also ranked as high as important relative to the other scores that we saw for other tributaries and the like. So we decided that again, we're going to do some sites on the main stem, West Fork, and then hopefully 2 to 3 tributaries was the goal. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. So in looking at the current sites, here are those that are located on the West Fork and the main stem. Again, huge gratitude to City of Ukiah staff, Ryan Cricken, and others who helped us to coordinate access to view these locations and make it safe for staff to be able to access. We were able to obtain agreements again for a West Fork location just upstream of the confluence, a main stem confluence of West Fork and East Fork, I should say, a main stem location just downstream of the confluence, West Fork and East Fork, and then a main stem location near Norgard Lane, which you can see is a little farther down in the basin. And there are some other kind of additional benefits to each of these sites in terms of existing monitoring infrastructure that's kind of nearby, which was another reason we found these to be good to target. And so each one of these sites we have visited again and collected environmental tracer samples and then performed the herpetology surveys for frogs and turtles. All right, so one question is, could there potentially be a benefit, for targeting another location higher up upstream on the West Fork? So that's a continuing thing that we're trying to pursue to see if it might be possible. All right, so we've taken a look at West Fork and Main Stem. Let's now take a look at some of the tributaries where we've been able to secure access agreements and have collected data. So I'm not showing you exact locations just to protect the participants' privacy at this time, but there is a great location that we were able to obtain access at along Forsyth Creek, again, one of our highly ranked priority tributaries. And we can already see that there's a lot of very valuable ecological habitat there. There's abundant riparian vegetation, there's a lot of frogs, and it looks like also some salmonids during the initial survey. Fish team will be heading out there next week is the plan to get a better sense. There is also a possibility at both of these locations for installation of a shallow monitoring well, which was identified in the scope of work for the grant-funded project. Again, this is pending approval by the participants. And so we have some locations that we think could be optimal, but again, this is still something that we need to share and would be under negotiation to see if that's acceptable to them. At Morrison Creek, biological surveys are pending because access was obtained more recently, but from the initial sort of view from a public bridge crossing on the creek and a site visit with some technical team members onto the property, there does appear to be some nice riparian vegetation. Salmonids were present, and so we think this could be an interesting complement. Again, we do hope possibly to be able to add one more tributary site, and we're continuing to work on study participant outreach to see if more folks might be able to participate. And again, want to express big gratitude to different TAC members and folks who assisted with outreach to potential participants. That really was hugely helpful. All right, so that gives you a bit of an idea of where we're at in terms of progress that's been made to date. We are starting to collect data, which is very encouraging. We do have these 5 locations in the basin that have been identified for observation throughout the course of the study through early 2028. And so in terms of site selection outreach, we do hope to do some continued outreach conversations with potential participants to see if we can get that one additional site, maybe in the upper West Fork area, and then also one more tributary, really either Ackerman Creek or Robinson Creek are what we're looking at right now. I've been working hard, reaching out to folks to see if they might participate. We are also going to be looking at a location for a new stream gauge, and especially because we do have a study participant along Forsyth Creek. The GSA owns and operates a stream gauge on Forsyth Creek, and that is in need of some repairs to have reliable data collection. So looking at doing repairs there as part of this process also. And we'll also be, again, coordinating with the current participants to see about the possibility of that shallow monitoring well installation. And then finally, on the sort of monitoring and data collection side of things, there will be additional biological surveys and geochemical sampling that will take place before we provide another update to the board of directors. And again, the first round of fish surveys are slated to hopefully happen next week. Need to do a little coordination. That looks like it should be able to happen. And then again, we'll also be installing some water level and temperature sensors at some of the study locations as well. So that is all that I have for today. I'm happy to answer questions or clarify anything, but thank you so much for your attention.
All right, any comments or questions from the board? Dr. Bailey?
Yeah, just one of the criteria for deciding which creek says hydrological management. Does that mean that there's like active management of the hydrology occurring on some portion of the watershed? I'm just curious what that means.
And that is explained a lot more thoroughly in a previous document that we shared. That's really referring to anything, whether it's be any kind of like human infrastructure, whether that is nearby wells or stream gauges were a factor. It could be, are there public supply wells nearby that might be pumping, large volumes of water? It could be whether there are, I suppose you're thinking if there's management on site. That could be relevant too. We did actually consider the spreading basins for the recycled water at the water treatment plant because we also didn't want to be too close to areas that might have too much artificial influence. And so we're considering sort of both sides of that coin when we did that ranking. I hope that somewhat answers your question. I'm happy to specify a bit more if needed.
No, that's fine. That gave some clarification, and I can look back at the previous report too. Thanks.
Perfect.
Director Crane?
Do the dams on Mill Creek constitute stream management?
I would say so. Yep, and especially because that tends to prolong, it does a few different things. It tends to prolong the flow, it sounds like, that takes place on Mill Creek throughout the summer, far beyond some of the other tributaries that we were considering. And then also sort of moving into a connectivity and more ecology factor, it does appear to be a fish passage barrier. And so that was definitely something.
I'm not aware of any impoundments on any of the streams that you've spoken of other than Mill.
Right. And so that actually was one of the factors that couldn't be prioritized, Phil.
All right, any other questions? We'll take a moment to go to public comment for this item and the previous item, 4C.
There's no hands raised online.
Right. Thank you, Audra, for that update. We will now go on to item 4E, consideration of groundwater sustainability fee appeal submitted by Fred Sagehorn and Son Incorporated. We'll go to our general manager.
Thank you again, Maya Simerson with GSA staff. The fee appeal process for the GSA is spelled out in Resolution 24-05 under Section 3. And as with some of our other governing documents, actually following it by the letter is a little complicated, and the time constraints that are put in there with the response time I needed to follow is one of the reasons that I ended up adding this item so quickly to this agenda. We received this letter from Mr. Sagehorn just a couple of weeks ago, and it's not this request of this magnitude is not something that the general manager would feel comfortable with granting, and nor would I feel is appropriate for the general manager to approve. So I had to defer my decision and say no, and that I would be bringing it forward to the board when I spoke with Mr. Sagehorn on the phone a couple of times. So the board's role today is to review the appeal materials provided and consider the basis for the request and determine whether you feel any adjustment or exemption to the fee assessment is warranted. I can provide the feedback that we've gone back and double checked that the parcels that the properties are being charged for are all within the basin. There was one APN that the owner specified as not receiving a fee, and in my first review it looks like it actually should receive a fee. So I'm not really sure why it wasn't included, and have a message out to the consultant that does that work for us, but it is squarely within the GSA itself's boundaries. So that would actually incur potentially an additional small fee for that APN 187-250-0200. There was an argument made in the materials that the fee structure places a disproportionate financial burden on large rangeland properties that don't actively extract groundwater, and this appellant contends that the agricultural operations use more than his farming does, but that again is not a categorical exemption for the general manager to be able to make. So I'm bringing this item forward and seeking direction from the board on how you would like staff to proceed processing this request. Happy to answer any questions that I can. Thank you.
All right, comments, questions from the board? Director Crane?
Comment. I support the idea that if the area of land side doesn't seem appropriate to charge a fee for the area of land that's outside of the basin.
Oh.
And it does seem to be appropriate to charge for those areas that are inside the basin. So if there's some that is out, it seems like it should be excluded. If there's some that's in that's not being included, it seems it should be included.
Thank you. I was not able to determine that any are being charged that aren't within the current boundaries of the GSA's footprint. So I do believe that the fees that he has received are accurate. We double checked.
Director Gasca?
Yeah, I feel if property that's in the boundaries needs to pay. I mean, it's unfortunate. I realize that it is more of a burden, especially on range land owners. But then, I mean, there's even like in my property, it's basically kind of range land, and I'm not really commercially farming on it, and I pay. Everybody has to pay. And with the agricultural assessment, you know, it's on any irrigated land. You know, we're not determining whether people are extracting or not, or even have the ability to extract. Just if they're irrigating, regardless of crop, they're paying. And I mean, I don't think there's anybody in the basin that really wants to pay, you know, honestly. But it's a state mandate that we have to, and as soon as I think this board has done a fairly good job of getting it to paying as little as we have to, and we'll, you know, I personally, and I think most of colleagues here sitting here will continue to do that as well. But if his property is in, he has to pay, and I don't think that we can really exempt him from those fees legally.
Director Bailey?
So in the staff report, you said conduct additional parcel and acreage verification. It sounds like you already did that you confirmed that. I mean, he talks about his parcel being partially in and partially out, but we're doing it by parcel, correct? I mean,
Well, the boundaries of the GSA were delineated by the state, and they're not coterminous with parcel. So there are situations where it's cutting through, maybe half your parcel is in, half your parcel is out, and I mean, I think whatever is in that acreage should pay, because we do delineate irrigated acreage and break it out of a total, so that's not that hard, and it wouldn't really affect that many parcels. So if you got a 100-acre parcel and 40's in and 60's out, you know, I do agree you should only really be paying what is actually in, which it sounds like he is. And so,
Yes.
Is that the situation?
It is, to my understanding. As we know, our fee finder is not active, so I'm having to rely on the consultant to go back and verify. So if the board's direction is that any appropriately billed fees for parcels or property that's inside the GSA, we will definitely do a solid run through with her on getting those charges and double checking, as including this one that I do think should be, that wasn't included, before following up with him. So we definitely don't intend to charge someone that's not inside the footprint of the GSA for the fees.
yeah, I mean, the fact that, I mean, he raises saying that part of his parcel's inside the basin, part of it's not, and he's being charged for the whole thing. And then in the preliminary, and I don't know the accuracy of that, but then in the investigation of this one appeal, you found another parcel that seems like it should have been charged. I don't know what the cost would be to go in, since the fee finder's not functional, and have a consultant do that. But I just, you know, making sure that people are being accurately charged, and that we're not charging some people when we should be, and that we're charging people that we shouldn't be, would be important.
Very important. And as a side note, it's not an interrelated issue, but the presentation you just saw from Larry Walker and Associates by Audra, this property is one of the properties that did allow us to access their property for a monitoring well. So, you know, they're being very conscientious and good partners with the agency, but on the other hand, there's not an avenue where we trade off with exception for access to the property.
Right, so are we comfortable giving direction to seek further clarity about the acreage that's within the basin and bring that back with more information?
I'm comfortable with that.
A question, if I may. To what extent? To go around the entire bathtub ring, look for similar situations, or deal with it on the basis of an expressed concern, or what?
I mean, I guess that's where my question is of, we've found one inaccuracy with this appeal, and what the cost is to just make sure, because nobody wants to pay. But if it costs us a huge amount of money to do a micro analysis, and we've been really careful already, then, I mean, if it's like 50 grand to go around and check the whole basin, I don't know that it's worth it, because it seems like it's been done fairly accurately. But this just raises that, oh, we do make mistakes.
Yeah, it's my understanding of the model, it's a GIS layer that identifies all of the APNs that are inside that boundary. And the City of Ukiah is currently working on an interactive map, such as the one map that the county has, and I had them drop the GIS layer in so I could just easily fact check, since the fact finder is not up right now. So I'm happy to spend some time doing like a quick review of the entire boundary, but I think for this appeal, the most cost-effective measure moving forward be just to verify his parcels and get back to him with a response that I would be happy to coordinate with the chair and vice chair just to get him an answer sooner than later instead of having to wait all the way to the next board meeting if that was appropriate, if we do find that all of his properties are in.
Director Crane.
Once that layer you speak of is active, then a cursory look around the perimeter wouldn't require a consultant. It's fairly straightforward to look and see if there's some sort of gross problem. And then if we had an idea of that, then we could provide further direction for how finally to pursue that. But I don't think it requires a consultant at this point.
Agree.
All right, I think there's agreement.
Perfect. Thank you.
We'll just go quickly to see if there is any public comment.
There's none.
All right, seeing nothing else on this item, we'll move to 4F. Consideration of adoption of resolution and corresponding policy electing to participate in the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act and consolidate with the City of Ukiah to maintain the registered list of registered contractors. Our General Manager.
Thank you, Chair. Again, Maya Simerson, GSA staff. I am bringing this item forward. The TAC also discussed it at their last meeting. Our other two local agencies, the City of Ukiah and the County of Mendocino, which are both closely tied to the GSA's financial makeup, depending on whoever houses the money moving forward, regardless of that. They both participate and have opted into the California Uniform Public Construction Cost Accounting Act. And I can't say that acronym, so I'm going to try to avoid that whole word for moving forward. But the point of this act is it gives agencies greater flexibility and efficiency when procuring public works projects, which hasn't come up for this agency until we have had the CDFW grant, where we potentially are going to be doing a public works related project by installing monitoring wells. And we realized very quickly that we have to do a full and formal bid process for any dollar amount because the GSA has not opted into this program. And so it was discussed and brought forward to the board that we would like to enter into a resolution with a policy for supporting that resolution that will really help us in having in our bid requirements when we have to go out and match up to what the city and the county already do for those. Additionally, the City of Ukiah maintains a contractor registration list that we could lean on if the finances switch over to the City of Ukiah. And this would give us a lot greater flexibility for small projects, which is most likely what we will be doing moving forward for this agency. And it does also just align us with the other two practices of the county and the city. For those reasons, staff recommends the adoption of this resolution and policy. It's there's no fiscal impact to it. It just simply streamlines and simplifies purchasing procedures moving forward. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any comments?
I support it. I was heard the presentation of the TAC and agree. Making things easier is always better.
And the TAC was in agreement.
I move recommended.
I second.
Great, we have a first and a second.
Public comment?
Any public comment?
None.
All right, can we have a vote, please?
Director Gaska,
Aye.
Director Bailey,
Aye.
Vice Chair Crane,
Aye.
Chair Klein.
Aye. All right, we'll now move to the consent calendar. The following items listed are considered routine, will be enacted upon by a single motion and a roll call vote by the Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency. Are there any items that the board would like to see removed for separate consideration?
Don't have any.
All right, we'll entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
All right, do we have any public comment?
None.
All right, I'll call for a vote then.
Director Gaska,
Aye.
Director Bailey,
Aye.
Vice Chair Crane,
Aye.
Chair Klein.
Aye. Thank you. And now we're going to move to item 6, staff and partner updates. And we'll start with 6A, which is our general manager.
Thank you, Chair Maya Simerson. I have included in the general manager report attachment 1, which is sort of my running list of projects. And I just wanted to highlight a few of those for you this afternoon. You just approved quite a few contracts under the consent calendar on this agenda, and that did set us up moving forward really well into this upcoming fiscal year. There was one anomaly that did not get dealt with during this board packet, and you'll be seeing coming forward at the October meeting, and that's the on-call technical agreement with Larry Walker and Associates. They have a couple of agreements with the agency right now because of the grant work and some of the tasks that they do as sort of the on-call services. We realized, although we built them into the budget, we didn't update the agreement with them. So it's not an issue. It's not going to cause delay in any sort of work. There was no reason to include it as an urgency item, but I just want you to be tracking that we will have one more agreement coming up on the consent calendar of our next meeting. And just for your reference, you approved also the amendment to the professional services agreement with the City of Ukiah this afternoon, and you'll likewise possibly see that that agreement will be going to the Ukiah City Council for their approval, so that we can get it fully executed and back to the board at their next meeting, which is on June 17th. So just in case you see something that says GSA on it, that's just me taking that amendment over to them. And then moving into projects, you heard the update from Audra and Larry Walker in regards to the periodic evaluation. That work is rolling along really quickly. The small GSA coalition meetings are continuing. I've participated in a few since we last met, and the exciting thing to note there is an update on Prop 4. It does look very likely that there's going to be a small amount of non-competitive funding coming in for the small GSAs, and they're requesting that we submit them what our anticipated requests for that funding are going to be. And I would like to propose that it looks like the periodic evaluation costs could be eligible for funding. I'd like to submit all of the costs associated with the periodic evaluation work and a line item for community engagement. I think we could get reimbursed and cover the costs of that interactive fee finder tool on our website and have some additional funding for community engagement. So those are the two things that jump to mind. Meanwhile, we have an ad hoc that is meeting very soon, I think next week, from the TAC that we have set up, that's going to look at Prop 4 in its entirety and if there's any other projects that should be included in that list. So I just wanted to kind of keep you informed as that moves along. There's still nothing set in stone, but those opportunities are coming up quickly. The small GSA also completed the fact sheet, and that was attached to this packet. That was work we did earlier in the calendar year. The website continues to be being updated regularly. The clerk has been keeping the meetings and minutes, everything there really well updated. So again, as always, if you have feedback on the website, let me know. Really exciting is our joint meeting coming up in July. That's going to be a 2-hour meeting. And there's just 2 items that we'll be discussing, which is the periodic evaluation and the ISP work that Stantec has been working on. And in the packet, Stantec has provided a draft of a FAQ form, flyer. So you will have seen that in draft form right now. We're welcoming any feedback on it. It's also in the process of being translated into Spanish, so it will be an English on one side, Spanish on the other side document, and we would like it ready and in its first iteration to take to the tribal engagement meeting at the end of this month is our goal. Let's see, what else? Which brings us to a tribal engagement meeting. We have invited 31 tribal members covering 7 tribes to a meeting at the Ukiah Valley Conference Center on Tuesday evening, June 30th. And we're getting some RSVPs coming in, and I anticipate having a good turnout for that meeting. We're going to be hosting it jointly with representatives from DWR and from Stantec, along with the chair and vice chair from this board. We are hoping to solicit nominations for the tribal rep to this board, along with hopefully 2 alternates and an alternate for the TAC seat. And they don't have to nominate at that meeting. The nominations are open through July, so they have time to get that nomination in, but we would love to be able to welcome new board members before your next meeting. And last but not least, I think just that we're moving along through the identifying projects for Prop 4 and continuing to coordinate work with the consultants. So I think that's it for me in a nutshell.
Thank you, and I just want to say that things have been going really well under your leadership as our general manager, and just appreciate all the hard work and the clear communication. You know, having your report outlining all of the different items and projects that you've been working on, it's just been a huge improvement, and we're loving working with you.
I forgot one thing.
Okay.
Liz, who is here, was so kind to update and provide also our year-to-date Q3 reports. So in that packet were financial reports for the GSA, and it also notes that we received that grant reimbursement of $138,000. So it's exciting to see that coming in, and just appreciate very much keeping our finances really current, like in real time. So I wanted to highlight that.
That's great. Thank you. Any comments from the board?
Yep, no, I agree. And then also on the fact sheet, I mean, it was good to see that despite this costing money that we don't really all want to pay, we're on the lower end of the annual compliance cost per acre foot. So I think we're doing the best we can in the situation where we're being forced to, and it's nice to see that we're comparing really well to, I mean, there were only, I think, 2 other districts in the state that had lower compliance costs. And it's due to a variety of factors, but I think working with the city as a partner has been part of that, and trying to keep an eye on finances and not charge too much is also part of that.
Which tab?
In regards to the Prop 4 projects, are those what you're referring to in regards to seeking reimbursement potentially for the periodic evaluation and the community engagement, including the fact finder tool? Yes, and we have time to also gather input from the ad hoc before I submit those, but they are due soon, so I wanted the board to have a chance to weigh in.
I think there's agreement. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Any public comment?
No.
Great. Thank you very much to our general manager. We'll now go to updates from GSA Legal Counsel.
Yeah, hey, good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and members. We don't have any broader updates today other than, we've enjoyed working with Maya, preparing some of the consultant agreements that you approved today, and we'll look forward to keep working with Maya and staff on the JPA updates. That's all that we really have going on right now with the GSAs.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment on that quick update?
No public comment, but for the record, that was Jonathan Weldon, Legal Counsel with Chronic, Moskovich, Tiedman, and Gerard.
Thank you. Any comments from the board? All right, we'll wrap up with item 7, future agenda items, and set our next meeting date. I believe our agenda reflects an August 13th meeting, but we also have a joint board meeting.
Yes, June 11th.
July 11th?
July, sorry. July
July 11th?
11th? No,
Today's
I'm-
the 11th.
It's the 10th. Hold on, now I'm confused.
Yeah.
It's the 10th.
The
The
10th.
10th, unless
Oh,
we
it
want to
is.
meet on a Saturday, which happens to
July
be the
10th.
11th.
July 10?
July 10,
Okay.
Yes.
10 a.m.
So
Yes.
we will be
Thank
having
you.
a joint meeting. Is it here in Chambers?
No, we're hosting that at the Ukiah Valley Conference Center. It's a large group, and I
Okay.
would request
That makes
permission to
sense.
work with the chair on the format for that meeting and the clerk on the prompts for that meeting. But if I can check in with you on that.
Yep.
Yep,
think
and
there's-
and I have a conflict that I'm going to try to resolve, but it might be that I need to have my alternate from the Russian River Flood Control District
Yes.
come.
And we were aware. Thank you for that reminder.
Okay. I see we have a hand raised online. I think it's Dominic from DWR, but I can't read
Yes.
it.
Dominic?
Yes.
Go ahead, Dominic.
Okay. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I don't want to take too much time, but I just wanted to give you all some updates. So, yeah, a lot of updates on Prop 4. I just encourage, there's so many different programs coming out, so I'd encourage anyone interested to sign up for that listserv. There was one I just wanted to highlight based on some of the earlier discussion. I don't know if you've heard about the stream gauge improvement program that we ran in the past, but there's likely going to be a round 2, and that would be a technical services program, is my understanding. So it wouldn't be a grant program; it would be direct services provided by a contractor. But I know you were talking about potentially rehabbing one of your stream gauges. So late 2026, there should be guidelines released. And then also, we just released our 2026 semi-annual groundwater update. It's a pretty good data set, worth checking out. And then 2 other things really quickly is just the CashGem online system is moving to the Sigma portal in July of 2026. The backend database is still the same, but just the way it'll be accessed in the future is changing. So if you're subject to that, you'll get an email. And as far as the GSA is concerned, the process for uploading data will not change. And then the draft interconnected surface water guidance is still tentatively scheduled to come out this quarter, so we'll see. I'm hoping it does. Anyway, that's it. I just wanted to share this update. Oh, one more thing is we released our 2023 statewide land use data set as well. So I know that's used in your, I believe, by your consultant for some of the fee determination.
Thank you very much for that update. Okay, so we have our next meeting will be July 10th. I think at the conference center. We do have our tribal engagement meeting happening June 30th, and then we'll also have our next regularly scheduled meeting on August 13th, 2026 here at Board Chambers. Anything else, Board, before we leave? Any items?
I'm on the 10th.
What is the time on the 10th, Maya?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. Okay. And the 13th is 1 p.m. Okay. Great. We will adjourn at 2:27 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.